Well, welcome everybody back to the Pagan show. And I've been doing a lot of interviews. This is going to be kind of a combination interview with a good friend, Alexander Nemo, who I've known for years, who've done interviews. And we're catching up with him, but also in this new project, this is maybe the first time many of you have met him. Uh, and for you young people who have been asking me the question of where are these books that you need to practice from, one of them is Magic Beginning the Path by Alexander Nemo. It's a direct hands-on book that he's offering to us. But we'll get to talk to him about that. How are you doing?
Hello, Ed. How are you? Long time no see.
It's true. Everybody's been saying that. I've been out of the circuit for a little more than 2.5 years, really studying what's been happening and getting out of the way because, I'm older and I'm supposed to be wiser, and we see a lot of different things. But you've been continuing your work. You continue to do so. You mentioned your book. But what else are you doing these days?
I mean, really, my whole life is just consumed by the spiritual pathways. So I'm sort of lucky that way. We've been doing readings, lots of classes, and I'm finding more and more that there's a drive to go back toward real or classical magic where people can understand the connections between themselves, their higher self, universe. So I think that's basically helping to support the drive and the results I'm seeing right now. Because last year was really rough as far as people looking for something and not knowing where to go or what to do.
I think this is important. So, where are you doing your work now in the country? I know that you're doing some hands-on classes, but where's that at?
I'm in the middle of the state of Florida. I live about an hour south of Orlando in a town called
Hmm.
Mulberry. But me and my girlfriend Sultania, we travel literally the whole state and out of state doing readings, classes, events. So it's been a lot of fun, and of course selling the book and hitting the stores and doing book signings.
So it's very early in the interview, but I'm going to ask you anyway. How do people contact you?
Oh, they can always hit the website alexandernemo.com. That's the easiest way to do it. But if they do a search for Alexander Nemo Psychic, it'll come up with my Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff.
There you go, folks.
Very, very easy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You did a good job of that. I mean, very few people actually buy their name. I could not actually buy my name. I actually can't trade my name.
Wow, that makes it
Uh,
uncomfortable.
um, I was in the process. I got Ed the Pagan trans. I've got that one trademarked. But Eddie Hubbard was an early DJ in the.
Right.
See, people when they go, oh, older people go, oh yeah, that's right. And of course, you have Scientology, which is
L. Ron
L. Ron,
Hubbard,
and
right?
it's very difficult to use the Hubbard name for anything.
Yeah, I could
Uh,
imagine.
yeah,
Because people
but
say, "Are you this Hubbard?" And it's like, no, different one.
yeah. But I will tell you, if you're out there, look, this is a note for you out in the future. If you have not bought your name and it's still available on .com, it's worth
Yep,
the 10, 12, $15 a year to do so.
do it. Sure. Because
Even
I
if,
I I own the name probably 15 years before I ever opened the website.
so go out and do that. So, okay. So let's talk about your book.
Okay.
What is your book? I mean, I know it's a magic book, but right now, the number one problem my audience is having, the
Hmm.
younger folks that I'm talking to, is that the books have become commodities. They don't know how to differentiate between them.
Right. I'm from the classical viewpoint. I was used to and brought up on reading Rigardi and Crowley and Franz Bardon and all these hardcore hands-on magic books. And I
Hmm.
remember the frustration with a lot of them because there was lots of information, very little hands-on. This is how you use it, and this is sort of where you're headed. So when I was pushed, let's say, or inspired to do my book, it basically saved me from answering the same questions 40,000 times over from the students. My book basically looks at a magical or an esoteric pathway and saying the goal is to reach freedom. Here are the steps that we can start taking now. Because if you start the healing process, then your vibrational state increases and you automatically start manifesting the skills that are supposed to be there, that are there, they're just buried. So my book is hands-on toward the healing, and then with a little bit of well-rounded stuff to get them going toward more standardized magical work, if there is such a thing.
Now, you mentioned that you are selling this direct, alexandernemo.com.
Right? Sell it direct. It's in about 25 or 30 stores, and we are not on Amazon. I did
I was
not
going to
bring the
mention that.
Amazon Kool-Aid.
That's a very interesting choice.
Well,
Um,
I couldn't imagine a corporation being a middleman making literally 80 times more than I am on my book.
no, I have no argument for that choice. It's a very difficult one.
Yeah.
It's always been a very difficult one. But then I also think it's also building to this idea that we're reaching a point where there's a lot of books out there.
Oh, sure.
And people are having a hard time differentiating what they're thinking about. I think we're in an age of community, and I would like you to address this, in which knowledge or information is not a question anymore. You can get it anywhere, regardless if it's good or bad. But
Right.
you've noted out that you've had more people wanting to come closer to physicality, to actually participate. Can
Right.
you talk about what you're seeing out there?
What I'm seeing is like I've been doing classes for a while, like on lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, the energy reclamation exercises. And the more I'm out there, the more people started gravitating toward the in-person classes. Zoom classes for me are great because, like we were talking about before, you get to sit at home and people travel to you across the internet, and it's easier. But people want the experience of having someone who knows what they're talking about. I think, like you said, there's tons and tons of books out there. There always have been, really. And it comes down to, is all the information correct, valid, or usable? So you have to sort of start becoming a discerning reader and an expert student. Just because something is in a book doesn't make it right. And I even say that in my book, is that just
Hmm.
because it's here doesn't mean it's functional. It has to prove itself to you, and you prove that the work that you're doing is functional, because people say, "Oh, those exercises you came up with are great." And I'm like, "No, I didn't come up with them. I rehashed some ancient knowledge and made it more palpable for people to be able to use it. That's all." And that starts getting them excited.
So that's a very important point I think people miss because you learned from the books of Crowley, Israel Garde, that sort of early 60s, 70s, 80s churn. And
Right.
that was an increase in books. I mean, you got Llewellyn was coming into the game. You had Red White. You had a lot of older books, and you had a lot of companies experimenting.
Sure.
I mean, the big companies were experimenting with paperbacks and things like that.
Yep.
But as much as there were books, right, they were still hard to get a hold of. And I think that's gone away. But the other side of that is that what you're saying is that your book takes that information and puts it in a more modern context so it's easier for you to understand.
Yes. And it makes it more usable. And what I'm finding is that since I'm very accessible, because the book has, we have a Facebook group on Facebook called Magic Beginning the Path, go figure. People know to look it up. And if they have questions, they can either email questions or post in the Facebook group, or contact me directly. Or if it's a really in-depth thing, then they actually hire me as a consultant or a teacher. But I don't necessarily do this thing of, I have to be in a mentorship program. If you need me to talk to you for 2 hours, then we do that. If I don't hear from you for another 2 months, that's great also, because magical work doesn't go in a progression of A to B to C. I wish it did. It sort of goes from A to B if I'm lucky, and then from B to L22, then to Z5, then back to A2.5, because everyone opens up differently because of their incarnational backgrounds, their karma, and their own interests in what they're doing. So you really have to be very hands on. And I always emphasize that it's up to the student to become the expert student. It's up to the person who's trying to do something to verify their own psychic work. Like when I read for people, people say, "Oh, I want a past life reading." I'm like, I really hate doing those. Why? I said, because I can be blowing the air up your nose and getting paid for it, and I have no way to prove it. I said, but if I'm doing a reading and I tell you that in the past 5 years you've gone through X, Y, and Z, and you're like, "Oh my God, that's exactly it." Now I have verification that I'm tied in. Now I have more confidence of the cards that are coming up. It's the same thing with magic. If I say, here's a great exercise, do this, if you're doing it and all of a sudden you're getting results within 2 or 3 days, that has nothing to do with me. That has to do with the student doing the work themselves. And that's what it's all about. No one can do it for you. It can't be bought from anybody. Every person has to become their own expert student and teacher. And then hopefully they find people like you or I to help guide them along what they're doing.
Well, if they find me, I am by far one of the most difficult teachers in the world because I don't teach magic. I
Right.
teach leadership, and the magic of leadership. Oh yeah.
Uh,
That's why I don't have very many students. And more than 50% of my students fail. They just go off and do other things. And
right.
that's okay. But what I do, and I'm doing today, is I bring really great teachers, uh, and people of that. So let's talk to you about as a teacher. Before this book was written, why did you write this book? Why did you enter? Well, let's start with the student. Why did you enter this psychic path that you've been on for so long?
Well, I mean, part of it has to do with a friend of mine that I knew from when I was a lot younger, who literally was a walking master and spoke 40 languages from the time he was 5 with no exposure to anything except English.
Hmm.
So with that person's experiences and hanging out for 30 or 40 years, having the hell scared out of me, you sort of like, this has got to be real. And then me opening up myself, of course, the whole purpose of this book was to help people get at to the craving that they have, because lots of people have the craving and they'll walk into a store and the store says, oh, here, buy this book and these 5 crystals, you'll be fine, and then give them no support, direction, or context of what an esoteric path is or how to be on it. So that's why I wrote the book. This is the answer to people asking the same 15 questions 10,000 times over. I'm like, let me just put this in a book so it's easier.
Well, I think that ultimately makes sense is to have that sort of aid. And
Yeah,
I think you answering it in the right way that you were answered. So you did it in response to the questions. You mentioned reading, and I know you do a number of the big psychic fairs. I mean, you've done some of the largest fairs. You've done some of the
yep,
been exalted. You've been interviewed as a psychic. We're talking to
yep.
you as an author, but you've been quite the exalted career worker.
It's really funny when I walk into a place and they're like, oh my God, that's Nemo. I'm like, where?
Where?
So, but yeah, when you really think about it, I do have a reputation for being good at what I do. And then when people say, oh, but you're so good, I'm like, I'm really good because I understand how stupid I am.
Hmm.
And people lose track of that. It's like for everything I know I can do, I think of all the things that I can't do yet.
Oh, I understand. In 2019, I was in October. October, I was at the Salem Psychic Fair working.
Oh, nice.
Um, but the important point message is how you can miss a message. I mean, there, I had gotten more than 40, 50, more than half to two-thirds of my readings were all having this sudden break
Right,
in April. And I predicted it because I was happy this was it. It was vacation, that they were
right.
going to take a vacation on that. And a lot of them said, no, I'm not. I'm not planning to. I said, well, I see something. There's going to be a break in time where you're going to have a lot of time to yourself. You need to kind of prepare for that. And I did it over and over again. If I would have said, oh no, we would be quarantined during that period of time, I would be all over the newspapers.
Yeah, of
Uh,
course. Yep.
but as a psychic, I just told them I saw this big break, and instead of putting a negative connotation, and
Right.
we often talk about that being the message, the messenger gets in front of the message. And you seem to be able to have broken down that which is most difficult, being the messenger and not, and being the messenger and that you're telling the real message. Can you talk about that clarity? Or is it, or am I just, or is that not a thing with you?
It's really funny. I was just talking to someone in England this morning, and they were looking for someone to help them along. And I said, you have to understand, because they were wrestling with their own, that internal doubt that you always have. I
Hmm.
said, I've been doing just like even for the readings for the past 45 years, and I have folders full of letters and recommendations and accolades. And till this day, sometimes I will walk into a fair, take out my cards, and sit there and say, "Oh my God, can I really do this?" It's like, so that self doubt is always there, but that's also what keeps you honest, because you need to always be self-checking.
Hmm.
That for me is important because if I'm not self-checking, then I'm becoming full of myself, and that becomes just stupid or becomes limiting, and that doesn't do my clients any good.
Absolutely. Uh, and that's a big thing is that when you are doing these psychic readings, when you're writing these books, you're
Mhm.
really trying to bring value to the people who acquire them, to who want
Yes,
them.
sure.
So today, one of the things I'm getting, and maybe let's talk about it. Let's get out there. Um, well, first, let us back up. And
Okay.
so, who should buy your book? I mean, really, who should buy your book? And we always say everybody, but who should really buy your book?
Anyone who is interested in any type of what I consider valid spiritual growth. We're not talking about a set of rules. We're not talking about laying out a set of fears if you do or don't do this. Anyone who actually wants to start working toward their freedom, toward reconnecting with their own higher self so they can experience that divine spark. And as they start doing that, then you can start understanding all the tools because all the tools are great. You know, the crystals and the elemental weapons and ritual magic. If you're doing that, there's so many things. But first, you have to understand who or what you are and then be able to use the tools to access and amplify that. And then they also have to get over this whole thing where I've had people come to me and say, well, I really want to take the lesser banishing ritual class, but I can't afford a sword. And I'm like, come with a butter knife. I said, the sword is a symbol, but the butter knife will do just as well if you understand the energy connection and the consecration process. People get lost in what they think they need as opposed to what they truly need. So this book is for anybody who has questions, who are even better, who has doubts. Because I'm sorry, if they start in the energy reclamation chapters, they will prove to themselves that the exercise and energy healing works. Period.
So, why do you think that people need that fancy sword? I've seen this over again, all these tools, as is they think, and they use that sometimes as an excuse not to start, but sometimes they just think that that's necessary. Where do you think that comes from?
I unfortunately I hate to say the word, but advertising.
Okay, there's nothing wrong with saying that.
I mean, it's people become convinced that, or it's an excuse too. People become convinced, well, I can't do this until I have X, Y, and Z. I go just the opposite. It's like we came to this consciousness level with nothing, carrying the divine spark. Therefore, you need nothing to re-access it. But later on, if you can like get some goodies and tools, fine, because you can understand how they use them. I mean, I've been at this for 45 years. You know how many crystals I have in my collection?
Don't
Eight.
thousands? Eight?
Eight.
Okay. Well,
I
that's
have
very
eight.
interesting.
Yeah, eight functional crystals that I can literally use for any circumstance under any situation to access healing vibrational states and information. Maybe I would go up to 12 or 15 max, but after that, no, then it becomes redundancy. And the excuse, I need this crystal in order to hit my higher self. No, you need to sit down and meditate.
Gotcha.
Or no, you need to sit down and start resolving all those fears. Or no, you need to sit down and start getting the energy back from the childhood trauma or the abuse. Or even funnier, going back into past lives and getting that energy back, because whether it's a past life or now, it's still the same thing. We're immortal, we still carry it.
And if you ever doubt about community trauma, you can listen to the show that we did with Shane Nelson, who gives us the real numbers and the real statistics on the trauma of basically 89% of most of the pagan and magic community carry trauma from religious purposes. Check
Oh
that
my,
out.
yeah.
It'll support everything that you just said. It's great on that. So let's go ahead and move on to a more of today's topics. One of the things
Okay.
how do you keep your energy together? Um, is the energy around you basically positive when you go to these psychic cures? Because I find there's a lot of maisma now in the world that is people are really like in panic.
They are. It's really weird. At the fairs, every fair is like a totally different personality. Sometimes you get people who are really great. Then sometimes it's just an overwhelming sense of fear. Sometimes you have a lot of people who are very doubtful of what they're doing and they're looking for something. So each one is really unique, which I never realized it would be like that. Me being the smart aleck old psychic who has nothing invested in looking stupid, I always tend to get the people who are really like stubborn about psychic stuff. So I had this, if we have time for a short story, one of my favorite stories,
We have all the time in the world.
we were in Sarasota, and this man walks up to my booth, and he's like 6'5", and he had to be 75 years old, and this man was cut and in shape, long gray hair down to his waist, tattoos all over the place, and he looks at me and it's like, he goes, "Are you any good at this?" Did I lose you, Ed?
Oh no,
Oh, I lost your photo. That's all. Image.
I I was giving you the stage.
Okay. No, sorry. So, and he walks over and goes, "Are you any good at this?" And I looked at him like, "No, I suck." He's like, "Then why are you here?" I said, "To annoy people like you." He goes, "So you're going to read for me?" I said, "I'll tell you what." I said, "I will read for you, but you don't pay anything until after we're all done because you are the person who needs the proof in the pudding." So he sits down, is by himself. Now his arms aren't crossed or anything. He is wide open. So when I'm dealing out the cards and doing psychometry or reading, I'm like, here's a person who has massive amount of authority, lots of young people around them, and just you gave up a career of artistic creativity and writing for something else on it. And his wife comes over and sits down, and his wife is like looking at him, looking at me, looking at back, and this man sat there stone faced, not even a reaction. It was great. And he finally gets up and he like brushes off his shirt and he looks at me and goes, "Yeah, you're right. You suck." And he walks away. And
Hmm.
his wife is in there. She's starting to laugh. She goes, "Oh my God." She goes, "You hit everything." I said, "What the hell did he do for a living?" I couldn't get it. Because he was a captain of a destroyer for 25 years. I'm like, so he does a full circle around the whole thing. He throws $100 bill on my table. He goes, "Is that book any good?" And goes, "No, the book sucks." Soon he just grabs it and he walks away.
There you go.
So you never know who you're going to find, but people are looking for
Hmm.
confirmation that their spiritual craving is real rather than just something that they think is fake or generated or whatever.
So that's something that's I think is happening now. They used to call it cognitive dissonance.
Yes, Maslow.
That Yeah, Maslow. I think we're moving into a time where we're having reality dissonance. That's not just
Sure.
our own beliefs, but society's beliefs. We're seeing it everywhere.
Right.
And they're contradictory, they're all over the place. And one of them is, I think that's more positive, is that you're seeing more people going back into getting psychic readings, getting back into doing these sort of psychic things. Um, and you see that energy. At the same time, you also have a kind of growing anti-psychic, pro-science, anti-psychic group out there.
Right.
Um, but do you see people coming into this more with you?
I I'm seeing a very odd split. I'm seeing even in the scientific or medical community, I'm seeing a lot more openness to it, especially if you're verifiable. Because right now, I think I'm reading once a month or so for 3 or 4 psychologists and 2 psychiatrists, and
Hmm.
they are having an absolute blast. And 2 of them actually started using tarot in their sessions with people.
Hmm.
Um,
Carl Jung did.
Carl Jung not only used that, but he also used astrology. His daughter became one of the most famous astrologers in Europe
Hmm.
because he said if I have a complete natal chart, I'm saving the client so much time as far as where to look for problems.
Hmm. So
So,
you're seeing that.
yep, and that's a really good thing. I'm seeing a lot more acceptance of people to be able to combine the two. And then, of course, you always have the hard right and the hard left, as it were, where people are either extremely pro psychic and crazy. And I'm like, and some of these people's, unfortunately, even the ones that
Hmm.
are proclaiming psychic or spiritual pathways, I wouldn't let my dog go and see them
Hmm.
because some of them are just outlandish. And then you have the other ones who are extraordinarily good and very, very quiet, who don't push anything. They're just, as they say, I'm just here for the people who find me.
Hmm. Well, I think it's a very interesting space because we've never had more people on the earth, though, as far as we know, than we
Right.
do today. And the truth is, we're about peak human. I mean, everything is, all the energy that was in the 60s, 70s, 80s about we got to slow down overpopulation. Well, congratulations, we succeeded. And
Yeah,
I know you're seeing the hard right go, oh, it's so terrible, the population. We knew that back then that was going to be the sacrifice.
right.
Uh, but we're starting to see that sort of proactive, that macro energy get into society that we
Yes.
need to lower. Now, today, they're arguing against it. And of course, the idea of it. But one of the things I think we're seeing that we've seen is that individuals like yourself, uh, going out teaching and doing this sort of work,
Hmm.
on a more level-headed position doesn't get the same degree of attention as some of the most outrageous of the outrageous. And
Oh,
yes,
absolutely.
and folks, I plan to get truly outrageous this year. I've got some things coming up. Yeah, I do. I'm absolutely committed to some uh, forms of advertising that will be absolutely bonkers, that will cut the noise.
Right.
And it's hard. I mean, and what I want to do more than anything else, I want people to find people like you. Because I think one of the hardest things people are having right now is finding the decent person against this noise and advertising that's required.
Unfortunately, that is very true, and some of the people out there, like you said, are just they're so bonkers. And I ran across someone who was charging like $4,000 a month for a mentorship program, and I almost choked. It's like, how can
Oh,
you do that to somebody? It's like the people that come to me, it's like they'll make appointments, maybe $100, $200 a month if they really are working hard on something, and then I may not hear from them for 2 or 3 months because they're working. And then they'll call me up and they'll have a list of questions, say, we have to go through these. I'm like, okay. And
mhm.
then they disappear again. That's the way it should be. It's like the mentor isn't supposed to make themselves a dependency. We're supposed to make ourselves unnecessary.
So there's this whole industry, um, $25,000 a year. Strategic coach, which is another one, charges $5,000 a month just to
Right.
start. There's 125,000. So we see this in the techno bros. We see this in the sort of Silicon Valley type of things.
Right.
Are we now seeing that? So you're saying we're starting to see more of that inside our community as well.
I'm seeing it, and I mean, may the gods bless these people. I have no idea where they're getting the demographic to support it, because most of the pagans and Wiccans I know are very middle class, and every now and then you'll get the exception of someone who has more than enough to get by, and sometimes they're just looking to buy magic, which doesn't work well in the long run or short run at all. It's like,
Fair
because they'll come
enough.
to say, well, what can you teach me? It's like, I can't teach you anything. I can give you tools, but you're the one who has to do the work.
So give you the tools, alexandernemo.com, buy the
Right?
book. Uh, Magic, the path,
Magic beginning the path.
Magic beginning of the path, which is very interesting. I think that is fine. And is this a good book for a beginner?
Yeah,
Or is it
absolutely.
some?
It is written for beginners in general. I mean, the first two chapters sort of read like someone trying to eat graham crackers with no milk, because it goes through some philosophy and definitions of the word. And after those two chapters, everything is hands on. Each chapter is standalone, stuff that they can start doing and using that day.
Well, thank you. Any last thoughts you want to share? If you are thinking about getting into this community, or if you're thinking about learning this stuff, any suggestions?
I would say definitely. I mean, if people already know you, start checking out your stuff and be interested when you're getting your school up and running, because hopefully I'll be there teaching.
Hmm.
But it's a matter of find people who are valid, who support your view and your pathway rather than tell you what your pathway should be. That's the main thing, because too many people are trying to control everybody else.
That's one of the secrets of all of this is that you have to control yourself first,
Right.
and then the universe falls around. All right, well, thank you, Alexander. I really appreciate it. I will have you on more this year. I
Anytime you
fully
want,
expect.
yeah, you know how to get a hold of me, and It's like when you're bored, go and check out my YouTube station, and just because even though it's tiny, there's fun stuff there. But we need to find people. No, we need to help people set themselves free from their own internal traps.
I think there's a truth to that. And more than ever, as we go into this very challenging 2026, thank you, Alexander. If you're down in Florida or anywhere else that you see him, you should go and visit him. Go to alexander.com and check out his book.
AlexanderNemo.com, and the book as a whole, $22.95. It's just really horribly priced.
Yeah, there we go. And so, folks, and we'll be back soon with more.
Thank you, Ed.